Hey everyone, Mike Lowe here, and we are going to be taking a look at the boom and bust system here on Next Gen NBA 2K21. This is on PS5, and I'm going to be breaking this down into at least a couple different episodes here. This is going to be a 5-year sim, and just looking not just at the boom and bust, but just kind of generally looking around the league. When I did these sims, I have as much as I can just set the default out of the box, so there's no I'm not using any sort of like custom draft class. I'm not using any sort of custom like progression settings. Everything's just at default, including the game generated draft classes. So just to kind of show you where we're at here at the start, this is the start of the 2020 season. I started in the off season, and the reason I did that is so we could actually look at a couple different draft classes here in this particular series. But this one's going to focus on the fictional 2020 draft class. And I can show you here just a few of the players here. We're going to look at the top 3 picks in this particular episode here. So if I just got to find where he's at here. So Scott Green, this fictional player, was the first pick in this fictional draft here. 1-1 in the year 2020, as you can see there. He's a 77 currently with 2 badges, right? So we'll keep him in mind there. Scott Green, 2 badges, 77 overall. He went first overall. Second pick, I'm trying to recall here. Was it the Hawks? Yeah, it was the Hawks. So Mark Cousins is the guy who went second. Again, same thing, fictional. He has 0 badges, a 79 overall. Again, picked second. And then third was the Timberwolves. And they had a guy by the name of Corey Turner. He's a 79 overall. Again, third pick there. He has 3 badges. So again, pretty low badges. We've seen this in some other videos I've made, and this is kind of one of my probably stronger critiques of the game, is that it seems like rookies, game-generated rookies, come in just a little bit too underwhelming in regards to badges and maybe top-end ability. Maybe the other argument of that, or the other side of that coin, you could say, would be that maybe the game, when the game comes out, obviously there's a lot of excitement about that year's rookies and especially young players. Maybe they're just a little bit too bulked up in the game. Maybe they have too many badges out the gate. Either way, there's a mismatch there between the real life young players and then the fictional young players that do come into the league. So what I then did is I simulated ahead 2 different times, 5 years each time. And again, that's what we're going to do in this first series here. We may go up to 10 years and look around at some different things. So if you do have requests for that, let me know. But you can see here I have 2 different save files here, and that's what we're kind of jumping into here and looking. And so let's look at those exact same players. Now, I don't remember what teams they're on, so we're just have to go alphabetically by name. But the first would be Cousins alphabetically, and he was the second pick. And again, this is 5 years later, right? So if we scroll down to Cousins, we will see how he looked. And so he was, where was it? Oh, here he is, Mark Cousins. So he's now with the Knicks. He is an 85 overall, 5 badges. So, after 5 years, 85 is not bad at all. If we just kind of take a closer look at him, holy cow, he's got he's had a nice recent shooting, I guess. Little dinged up there. So he's won an NBA championship, first team all rookie. And again, he's up to 5 badges. So again, certainly the badges seem underwhelming. Again, just kind of seeing that progression. I don't think that's anything new per se, but nonetheless, that's what the second pick looked like here in this first sim. So an 85, I think he went from like a 79 to an 85. And we're going to go look for Green, who was the first overall pick. Scott Green, also on another team. So again, first pick there. I don't know if he even progressed. Was he a 79 or a 77 before? He's been pretty underwhelming. 3 badges, which I think is what he had to start with. So this guy hasn't really done a whole ton. He has not won any kind of awards. He's earned himself an extension. So again, he's not a terrible player, but for first overall, I mean, you're obviously wanting to see a little bit more out of this guy. If we look and see his career stats here, yeah, I mean, he hasn't done a whole ton. Certainly nothing overwhelming. And so, again, just looking at his potential here, B plus. So again, Scott Green, first pick in that draft, not looking great. And then our other person, I'm trying to remember who the other guy was. We looked at Green. We looked at Cousins. Oh, it was Turner. So we're looking for Turner. Just scroll through here. We'll see how Turner ended up. So Turner was the third pick in that draft. Here he is, Corey Turner. So he's up to 14 badges and 89 overall. I forget how many badges he had, but it certainly was nowhere near 14. So he's had a pretty nice career, it seems. He's a hell of a shooter, as you can see there. If we just look at his kind of basic stats here, I mean, he's putting up, he's done a nice job. He's gotten actually better, especially the last couple of years here. We've seen a pretty nice uptick for him. Let's see what else we can. Oh, he's pretty tired. And again, this is the end of the playoffs, though. It looks like he did make the playoffs. So he's got a hell of a contract there. And again, that's with inflation, so that gives you a quick little look of how the inflation's playing out. Again, we're not going to dive into that too deeply here, but he's been a two-time All-Star, two-time third-team All-NBA. He was the Rookie of the Year in 2021, and first-team All-Rookie. So he's looks to be the most successful out of that batch so far, for sure. Another guy I want to take a look at is actually his last name is Stanley, I think. And he was actually in the 2021 draft. So what was interesting about the way I did this, because before I saved it and started simming, I was able to load in the next draft class. So we technically have two static draft classes here. I can't really look at the other draft classes because when I quick sim this, of course, they were generating different classes. But the 2020 fictional class and the 2021 are here. This guy seems to be the best player in really both the saves, and we'll take a look at this. So Jawan Stanley was the first overall pick in the following draft, 2021. He's at a 93 overall, and he is up to 28 badges. So here we have a guy that, okay, he seems to be in line a little bit with what you'd see in some of these younger players, but keep in mind he's not that young. He's been in the league for, I mean, he's not old by any means. He's 23, but he's been in the league now. He's played what? 1, 2, 3, 4 years, 4 years. So, and so 4 years, 93. I think that's fair. 28 badges. It's arguable. And the reason I say, I mean, truthfully, I think 28 is pretty good. The reason I say it's arguable is this: if we scroll back to the very top of this list and we look at the top rated players, tell me how many fictional players you see here on this list, even if we just kind of look into the 90s. So, of course, I'm just looking at pictures, right? And this is kind of the easiest way. Then we'll determine sometimes they are still real players. It's with a fictional image. But Jawan Stanley, as we saw, he's the best guy. And we keep going here. These are all real-life players. Start going a little bit quicker here. There's Corey Turner, who we saw. So he was the third pick in 2020. And we'll just going just through the 89s, right? That's it. So there's two players in this mix. It's arguable, right? Is that too low? I mean, we'd have to kind of go through and look at these real life guys, but I'd be willing to bet, I mean, just looking at their ages, that we have more than two guys in a particular draft showing up here. So what do we make of this? Is the period prior to this another golden age in the NBA, going back to like Magic, Bird, Jordan, that kind of thing? Is just what we're seeing in the NBA up to that point? Just, we have this beautiful golden age of these familiar names we're seeing here, or is just an issue of the game perhaps not kind of perking up the fictional players as much, / maybe the generated classes just are starting a little too far behind. But I don't think the ratings are bad in a generated class, and I don't think the progression is all that bad, maybe slightly low. The issue still to me just seems the inflation of badges on real players, especially young real players, and older players. So again, now let's scroll through this list and look at the badge counts: 44, 56, 42, 46, and so on, right? Jawan Stanley, notice the drop there, right? Again, just scrolling through these numbers and looking. he's the youngest in this group too, right? By quite a bit. But he's by far the lowest, right? Who's the next guy that has a number like that? So Jaren Jackson, he's kind of the closest, and that's good, right? It's nice to see those, but the problem is you have these like top tier guys, these young, exciting players that, to me, and not always young, I guess, but certainly exciting players, Laker players sometimes with the 2K team, and so, but we have this inflation. And again, not that these are bad players, of course. No one's saying that, but just the inflation of badges and maybe just uh, just the ease at which badges are being assigned to some of these young players. You could make the argument that it's maybe a little bit high there, right? So let's back out and look at the next, and we'll look at those exact same players. And first, I want to actually go back to the original one here, and let's go find where Jawan is at. I'm trying to remember his Jawan Stanley, right? So let's look for Mr. Stanley here. I forget what position he is. I would have saved us a little time here, but that's okay. So Jawan Stanley, there he is. Oh, I'm sorry, what am I doing? He'd be in the actual he would be in the actual draft area. So he, just again, right off the bat, when this gets generated on the very, very first day you load this in, he is slotted as the best, if not, one of the best. I mean, right here, all three. He's kind of the perennial number one pick there. So again, you could make an argument this is, a LeBron James kind of draft here. I mean, just to be this perennial one across the board. It's not incredibly rare, but he's certainly not a bad player. I'm surprised he actually doesn't have a higher overall at the start. So just to kind of give you a look at where he is. So let's go now and look at those four players in the second 5-year advance. So everything's exactly the same. All we did this time is just start from the year 2020 again, and we just move things ahead, right? So I forget what team these guys are on again, so we're just going to have to scroll through and look for them. But again, Cousins would be the first one, and he was the second overall pick in that 2020 draft. So as we scroll down and look for Cousins, there he is, Mark Cousins. So similar, right? 4 badges, 86 overall. I think those are both within 1 point of each other. Nothing too shocking there. We go to Green, who would be next. He was the first overall pick in the 2020 draft. And I believe we saw him coming out at like a 79 with 3 badges. So again, same kind of thing here. So that progression line is spot on with these first 2 guys. Now, if we go to, we're going to look at Turner and then we'll look at Stanley. Let's go down to Turner first here. So Turner again was the 3rd pick, Corey Turner. And I believe last time he was like an 89 with 14 badges. And so again, similar. It was certainly not we're not seeing any of these guys turn into like boom or bust. Now you could definitely make the argument that Green was a busted first overall pick. He's not a bad player, but I mean 77, 79 overall is not what you're hoping after 5 seasons with your number 1 overall pick there. But I don't think that's a product of the bust boom system, right? Because it's not like in one he boomed and the other he flat out busted. He just wasn't a really good pick by Phoenix at all. So, and the same thing here, Turner just kind of followed that same trajectory line as did Cousins. So if we look at Stanley, who is kind of that top player, and I'll show you how I actually found Stanley here in a second. So Jawan Stanley, here he is in this one, 29 badges, 93 overall. I think that's exactly the same as the previous one, I believe. So, we look at his stats there. Again, very, very solid player. Looking at his awards, he's been a 2-time All-Star. So similar, right? Most improved player. That's interesting because I don't know if this guy was ever bad. But again, so you can see Jawan Stanley. Here's how I actually came across Jawan Stanley. It was kind of interesting. So when I went into the finances section on both of these, I was looking at jersey sales because to me, again, this is kind of an indicator of like the excitement generated around young players, right? Jersey sales. In real life, obviously, young, new, exciting players to the league are going to be selling a lot of top jerseys, not always just rookies. Um, but, there's not a lot of ton of people going out and buying that, 15, 16-year-old veteran jersey. It's just not typically how jersey sales work. And so, again, we look down this list, and this is through 5 years. So we should be seeing some new and exciting young players. But in this top 10, how many do you see? Not that these players aren't exciting. Of course they are, as are, perennial all-stars, future Hall of Fame players in this list. But Jawan Stanley's the only computer-generated one out of those first two draft classes. Now, that's only 2 years. I'm sorry, only 5 years in. We do this another 5 years. Obviously, we're going to see this start to be populated by fictional players, but a lot of that has to do with these players are going to be retiring and getting older. Um, we still have older players. Anthony Davis in this, again, 5 years down the road, he's going to be an older player. He's, 32, 33 in 2000, at the end of 2025 here. And so Jawan Stanley's the only one. I was a little bit surprised by that. Now, he's a really good player. He's looks to be the best player out of these first two drafts that we're examining. But this mix is kind of interesting, and I guess what it shows me is I'm a huge fan of NBA 2K. I think it's the best sports game series. If there is a criticism I have, especially with this new My NBA, I just don't know how deep the QA is going when they start looking at little issues like this. Are they game breaking? Not really. Are they annoying? Yeah, I think so. Can they be fixed though? And yes is the answer to that for me, because I know there's people in the community who are great at making custom settings that can tackle these things. I haven't checked recently if they're available, but I mean, heck, just a few days or even weeks after this video is probably even out, there's going to be options there where you can load up one of those preloaded settings, right? So what are we talking about with those? In case you're unfamiliar, you can jump in and create a My NBA by using one of these shared setups, right? So let's just say you wanted to make a new one. You could look and see. Now, if you recognize any of these online IDs, I've noticed the download counts aren't working on this screen as of this recording. They work for like draft class downloads, but they're not working here. And so you can look down and see if any of the creators within the community are people you recognize, trust. Sometimes they'll have threads up on Operation Sports where they're kind of discussing the details and so on. So again, it's just kind of a situation of, are you finding the one you're looking for here that would be a realistic setup? Because there are ways to go in, of course, and adjust some of these, whether that's draft quality, whether that's the speed of progression, and so on. There's a lot of different ways to combat that, and that's a whole other video at this point. So for now, again, I just wanted to give you guys just a real kind of simple look at kind of the top three picks here, and I guess the top pick of the following draft. I haven't seen the boomer bust kind of popping out yet. Now, that doesn't mean it's not there. And that's why I said this is a multi-part series here, is I want to start looking around for some of those, because let's be honest, usually the first three picks in NBA draft aren't going to suck. They usually are really, really great players. And so the game could just be doing a really good job of that, because think how frustrating it would be if the game just always busted one of the top three picks. I don't know how realistic that would be either. So again, I think what we're talking about here is we need a little bit further data. This at least gives you kind of a look to kind of see how progression's looking with fictional default draft classes in a pretty small sample size, 5 years. But in the NBA, we know players grow, fit into their roles, and progress rather quickly, perhaps quicker than any sport. And so, again, I think there's still a lot we can take out of this. So I appreciate you guys watching this. If you liked it, give it a like. Please subscribe if you'd like as well, and there'll be more content coming for not just NBA 2K Next Gen, but lots of other sport titles as they are released over the next few months. So I'm Mike Lowe. You can find me on Twitter at MikeLowe47, and I'll see you next time.